Hello everyone, Alasdair Gold of football.london here, out on Tottenham Hotspur's pre-season tour. Landed in South Korea yesterday, in Seoul, having spent 4 or 5 days in Tokyo, which was incredibly hot. Tokyo is amazing. It's a beautiful place, but I would say that in late July, it's a very warm place to be. And I have no idea how those Tottenham Hotspur players managed to not only train in it, but play a match or two in it as well. The under-21s played a game on the Thursday night against Japan under-20s, winning 5-2. So I don't know how they managed it. Some of those played both games. Fair play. I was just walking around getting very, very warm. Just a kind of a small, quick update, really, from the tour. Like I say, now we're here in Seoul, South Korea. Obviously, Spurs have arrived. You've probably seen the video from yesterday of the incredible reception. I was going to say remarkable, incredible, all of that reception they got at Incheon Airport. 2,000 fans there to see Tottenham come in. Of course, the main man, Son Heung-min, club captain and just national hero, legend for club and country, and just fantastic scenes. And another match to be played. Obviously, they've played Vissel Kobe already, 1-3-2 in Tokyo, as well as that under-21s match as well. First off, of course, there's been a transfer at Tottenham Hotspur. Min-hyuk has signed from K-League side Gangwon. Subject to work permit and international clearance. It is apparently the highest transfer fee for a player who went directly to Europe in the history of Korean football. I wanted to get that exactly right. Only turned 18 in April. Guesty and I obviously spoke about him a little bit on the podcast the other day. His contract runs until 2030 and he will join Tottenham, as we said he would, in January. That's essentially so he can see out the K-League season, get himself ready and prepared, pretty much very similar to what Lucas Bergvall did. So it's not like he's been signed and loaned back. It's just the transfer will officially go through in January. Figures for this, I've seen them ranging from 7 million euros to 4 million euros. The South Korean media is estimating it around the 4 million euros mark. So I would presume it's more likely to be around there, because obviously they'll know from the Gangwon side. Although what I would say is that Kim Byung-ji, the CEO of Gangwon, has said we can't reveal the transfer fee, but it was the highest figure for all Korean players who moved to Europe from the K-League directly. There's been some suggestion in the media. He said he couldn't reveal it because there's a secret clause involving that. So I don't know whether that means he's prohibited from saying it. Apparently, I think he's quite an outgoing character, as far as I'm aware. Someone that I think there's a suggestion he may even have his own YouTube channel as well, unless I'm getting the wrong member of the hierarchy at that club. It was either the owner or CEO. Is that technically the same thing? So there you go. So a player through the door. We spoke about this in the podcast. He is a talented young man. Seems to be suggestions that another Premier League. There was an official within the club said that another, it may have even been Kim Byung-ji, that another top 6 club were looking at him as well. There's been some suggestions that's Chelsea, but it seems like he always had his heart set on Tottenham, obviously following in the footsteps of a national hero in Sonny. You can see why the Son comparisons have come about in terms of the way he plays, because Yang is a winger on either side, very good finisher, got a turn of pace, very good at dribbling. You'll have probably watched the YouTube compilations and things like that by now of his efforts this season, because this has kind of been his first real season, a big season as well for Gangwon, and he's flying. He's absolutely flying for them right now. So we shall see him in January, essentially. Should be an exciting signing, but just another one for the future right now. So yes, it's not one for the now, but one for the future. It very much is one for the future because he's not coming till January. In terms of other movement right now, looks like Brian Hill's move straight loan to Jona. Looks like it's going to be done relatively soon, barring a disaster at the end of that. Suggestions that there's going to be a bit of a little contract extension, maybe another year added on the end of that as well, because contract is currently up in 2026, and I guess that retains his value, because the problem with Bryan Gil is he's played so little. He really has, and trying to get the value that you kind of feel he's worth as a 23-year-old, a talented 23-year-old who pretty much is very likely to go to Spain and do very well. But yeah, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see with him. I get it. I think that it's going to seem kind of strange from the outside, and there's going to be like, why is he not being sold and things like that, when clearly his future lies elsewhere. But I think it is pretty much just simply the fact that, yeah, it's a way of retaining his value. He goes to Girona, obviously had a brilliant season last season, finished third in La Liga, Champions League football as well, if I'm not mistaken. You would get that finishing top three, of course you would. He could go there, really push his value up a bit, and yeah, essentially then Spurs can ask for much more next summer. Whereas at this point, I'm sure there'll be money, whether there's a loan fee, whether it's wages coming off of the board. It's just kind of, I guess, pushing it to next year, and maybe Girona buy him as well. I know, kind of, like I said, from the outside, it kind of looks a little bit like, why can't you sell these players? But the problem is, if they don't play very much, the value is just in the basement, and that's kind of a big part of that. So, yeah, that one looks like it's going through. Still loads to talk about Emerson Real. Very little action, but lots of talk. Certainly from in the Italian side of things, lots of noise from Milan without actually speaking to Spurs and making a decent bid, from what I understand. So hopefully that one happens, because it looks like Emerson's kind of set his sights on Milan, and they seem to have set their sights on him. There's other interest in him, but I think it's just one of those where it's going to be a lot of noise until Milan just, meet the valuation. It's no secret Spurs are looking for at least 20 million euros, which I can't remember what that is now. It's about 17.8, something like that, million pounds, which I think's, I'm not a valuator, I'm not an estimator of players, but he's a very decent, solid right back. He's a Brazilian international, not obviously hasn't played very recently for them, but he has over the last year played for them. I don't think that's an astonishingly high amount for a player who will be very good, I think, in Serie A. So, yeah, it's one of those. We've seen this so many times. We've seen it with Spurs around prospective signings as well. It's a bit like just kind of put up or shut up, I guess, isn't it? It's one of those scenarios. So, yeah, that's him. And just for the tour itself, it's been, they're always frantic, manic, busy things, because there's a lot of kind of community events, there's lots of press conferences, open trainings, things like that. Spurs fans out in both countries have just been amazing. They just have. In Japan, it's probably, I would imagine it's probably a smaller amount. I think they've got a couple of supporters branches out in, maybe 3 in Japan. So when I was you have to go to the team hotel sometimes to do some of the community stuff, and there was like a little group of fans outside. But then at open training, I think it was either 3,000 or 6,000. My brain's completely gone. There were thousands, let's put it that way. They were brilliant at open training. It was just, the noise was fantastic. All the chants you'd hear in N17 every other week or so at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, it was all there. I always dislike it when people kind of run down fans from other foreign countries as if they're not as big or passionate fans. Of course they are. They love the club just as much. They've got to get up at silly o'clock to watch them. So, yeah, they've been fantastic. And I think it was 52,000, I've got the number, 54,255 fans at the game against Vissel Kobe as well. It was noisy. It was like a home game. It was that noisy. So, yeah, it's been a fascinating experience. Lovely people. Got some really good interviews in the bag so far. I've spoken to Archie Gray, who might be the nicest young man I've ever spoken to in my life. Have a look at that. That's on football.london. I'm biased because I wrote it, but I think just forget my words, whatever rubbish I put around it, focus very much on what he said. And I felt it was a really interesting interview. He kind of spoke about why he chose Spurs, what it's been like so far, his hopes and dreams and everything. And honestly, like I say, he is incredibly lovely. He's just a very, very nice young man. Credit to his family, raised him. I know this sounds weird. Until you meet him, you're probably not going to. This probably sounds very odd, but he's genuine. And this is just a view shared by everyone within the club that I've spoken to. He's just the nicest guy. He walked away from the interview, I can kind of hear in the distance, thanking the press officer for letting him do the interviews and things like that. And it's a bit like, no. Kind of everyone's supposed to be thanking you for coming and doing the community stuff. And that just seems to be the kind of guy he is. Just always smiling, very chatty, very kind of good with his words as well. I think it was probably double the length of the interview was meant to be, just because he's a very chatty guy. He's good fun. So have a look at that. It's on the football.london website now. I went up the other day. Spoke to Lucas Bergvall again, like I did in May. He's good. I felt he's a little bit more nervous than he was back in his, which is understandable. Back in Stockholm, he's in his element. He's in his kind of, he's quite literally in his hometown. It's kind of, he was very much not king of the castle, but he was the one that everyone's looking to. And that was quite a long, really kind of confident interview. Whereas this one, I felt a little bit more nervous, but still said some really interesting little bits and pieces about his relationship with Basuma, what Basuma said to him before the game against QPR, his injury, a little kind of seems like a hip problem that he'd been having. Spoke about Decky, his big brother, as he calls him. And Sonny is just wild about Sonny. It's another really nice kind of interview in terms of what he says. So have a look on that. That's on football.london as well. That went up yesterday. And talking to Decky, there's an interview going up. Depends when this video goes up, but it is going up today. What we're on Monday, and I'm losing track of the days. That's going up today. He said loads. That was a really, really fascinating interview. He spoke about having to adjust to be a winger under Postecoglou, and he knows that. Changing how training is different. He's already noticed this season compared to last, and why. Spoke about Bergvall and how good he can become. It's loads of stuff. It's a big, long interview. It's a really fascinating one. That goes out today. I think it's 11 o'clock UK time. So if this video is coming out after that, it's already out. If it isn't yet, hold on. It'll be there in a minute. But yeah, really enjoyed those. Press conference with Ange and James Maddison. It was meant to be Timo Werner, but it ended up being Madders because Timo Werner was unwell. Ange was good. Asked him about transfers, things like that. And you might have already seen the quotes. Kind of came out and said about how all of their original targets remain in place and they're the ones they want to get. So yes, while from the outside it can seem frustrating, he said there's a lot of misinformation out there. I think he's probably referring, putting words into his mouth here, but partly there's a lot of stuff about Chiesa out there at the moment, which apparently there's nothing in whatsoever. I saw an interesting thing today about him his agent flying to London, and Spurs and Chelsea are interested. If he's flying to London, it might be knocking on a very empty Hotspur way because they're all out here. Johan Lang, Daniel Levy, anyone that would be making that deal, they're all out here in South Korea. So, yeah, you're probably looking through the letterbox and there's no one there. But, yeah, he spoke about that. He spoke about the original. He said it's going to require some patience, but that's the whole thing. That's what they're trying to do is get those original targets. Obviously, there's a risk in that. There's a risk in the fact that you can wait, and if it doesn't happen, then you are having to switch to people lower down your list a little bit later when it's even more difficult to get them done. So yeah, I can. I think he understood the fans' frustration. Certainly, some fans' frustrations. He gets that, and yeah, we'll have to see. But look, there's no doubting they need players for the now. Of course, he does. We've got two very, very talented 18-year-olds in Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall, who I think are going to have a far bigger impact this season than many think. Archie Gray, I think, is going to start a lot of matches this season. Honestly, he is just ridiculously good. Having watched him in training, watched him in the match so far, a few matches now across the pre-season, he's a Premier League ready player for me. He's not someone that's going to need a lot of time to step up. There's going to be the odd little thing in matches where he's going to need to kind of just get used to the Championship to Premier League step up. But I feel like with him, he's going to very quickly be a go-to player for this Spurs squad. I think Postecoglou is going to look to him a lot, and I think the senior players will look to him and trust him. With Bergvall, there's a lot of talent there. I think you can still see, though, very much at times that he's still stepping up. It's a bigger jump for him, I feel like, from the Allsvenskan to the Premier League than it is from the Championship to the Premier League. But he's getting there, and I think he's adapting probably quicker than some people expected. Very talented, very great eye for a ball, very good at dribbling, good engine. Got a little bit. We were noticing this in the game. He's got a little bit of we called it the lamellas about him. He's got a little bit of he's not afraid to kind of put himself about a bit. Let's put it that way. So that'll serve him well, and I do think a lot of that comes from in the Allsvenskan when they found out he was going to be signing for Spurs. He admitted this, and there was this kind of his club, Jurgen, weren't delighted about it either, but he got a bit rougher treatment from opponents. Maybe there's a little bit of, how comes you're getting that Premier League move? I always dreamed of doing that kind of thing. Maybe that was what it's to do with. But as he said to me back out in Stockholm in May, that's fine. That's fine. He's got to take it because it was going to prepare him for the Premier League. And maybe that will kind of be part of his process. Those people kind of trying to leave their mark on him actually ended up helping him in a way. So yeah, good game on I've absolutely lost track of my day. Saturday in Tokyo against Vissel Kobe. It was a good test for Spurs in the fact that Vissel are the reigning champions of the J League. They're, they're 20. I think I've written it down here. I think they're 24 games into their season. I think it is. So they are match sharp as anything. 24 games into their season. So they are peak really in their levels of fitness, sharpness, whatever you want to call it. So for Spurs, and also they were used to playing in ridiculous, 30 plus degrees conditions. So they were always going to give Spurs fitness a test because all of that Spurs side, they'd all at the most played 45 minutes in each of the previous friendlies. Spurs still dominated the game, 73% of possession, 667 passes to Vissel's 210, and they had 19 shots on goal to Vissel's 8. 8 of those on target for Spurs and 4 on target for Vissel Kobe. Probably the main takeaways. First goal was a bit of a mess. If you haven't seen it already, Pat Matasar just doesn't really get a call from anyone to not try and cut out a low cross into the box, and he ends up sending it straight back to Yuya Osako, who just essentially was about 3 yards out and could smash it into the net. Lovely equaliser for Spurs. Archie Gray playing a pass out to Kulusevski, who was striker for the day. Very good. I like him in that false 9 role. He put it out to Brennan Johnson. Brennan Johnson put it back into Kulusevski, who played this lovely little flick into Porro. Took it inside, cut inside the defender, rolled it into the net. It was a lovely, lovely goal. Then Spurs scored straight after the restart. Sonny, I think it was Porro down the wing to Johnson. Johnson, who'd been a little bit quiet until then, played the perfect ball across to Sonny. Sonny smashes it home. It's always amazing when Sonny scores in Asia. I've been fortunate enough to see it happen a fair few times now in various countries, and just the reaction he gets from the Spurs fans is just incredible out here, and it's very cool to see. Then kind of the changes started to happen in the game about the hour mark, and he made a couple of subs at half time because Ben Davies and Vicario were playing their first minutes of pre-season. So he made a few changes, a couple of changes there. That was Bergvall came in and Austin came in as well. And then, hour mark, he started to make more changes. And the young players did really well. I think that's been one of the key things of this tour. The young players really stepping up and showing what they're made of. And, they were unfortunate. They kind of conceded they had a couple of chances. I think Donley had hit the post at that point. Jamie Donley. At left back, he was sensational. I thought he was up there as a potential player of the match. I thought he was that good. He hit the post. Mikey Moore had a shot that it hit the defender's arm after rolling past the keeper, which I think in the Premier League, I think VAR might have had you could maybe argue he couldn't really do much with that arm because he was sliding in. And Moore also had a diving header over the bar. And then, of course, when you miss chances, you know what's going to happen. Vissel found the goal themselves. Jean-Patrick steps inside Oliver Skipp. Oliver Skipp had played okay up to that point, but he wasn't very good for that goal. Wasn't strong enough in his challenge. And I think his shot deflected off of Emerson and went into the net. So, yeah, that's 2-2. But Spurs kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then, again, lovely goal to win the thing. Manor Solomon plays into the path of Donley. Donley, always getting people telling me about this. I am saying Donley. It just, if you say it quickly, Donley, it sounds like you're saying Donnelly. I know his name's like Jamie Donnelly. It's Donley. As someone told me on Twitter the other day, just say Don Lee. I mean, it kind of sounds like an Italian Godfather if I do that. So Donley got down the left, plays a perfect ball across to Mikey Moore just to kind of tap it in. And yeah, Jamie Donley and Alfie Devine I thought were excellent in that second half, along with Bergvall. Bergvall was very good. So many good, really kind of young players, but obviously all the attention is going to be on Mikey Moore because he's 16 years old and he's scored another winning goal, which is he scored a winning goal, but he scored another goal. I think if you're including kind of behind closed friendly goals, I think it's 5 in total and a couple of assists as well, or assist or 2. He's just having a phenomenal pre-season. And I asked Ange about him after the game, and even the normally reserved Ange Postecoglou said, yeah, he is super exciting, was his exact words. And he just said he's settled in really well, really earned his place in the squad, or roster, as he called it, which made me very much think of NFL. But yeah, it's pretty much all of the Spurs goals came from low passes into the box, which is the Postecoglou way. And watching them training, it's the variety of it. It's one of those where you look at it and you think, well, that must be easy to cut out. But it's the variety. You don't know whether it's going to be the fullback, midfielder, or even the striker might try and get to the byline and cut it in, and then you don't know who the person running in is going to be. Again, it could be a midfielder, fullback, winger, or striker doing it again. And yeah, just the goals have flowed. You know, they haven't. Yeah, they've won every game in pre-season, even the 2 behind closed doors ones against Cambridge and the under-21s being Japan under-20s, which, yeah, like I said earlier, was 5-2. So it's been positive from that respect so far this pre-season. And this is the thing. Look, there's no dancing around it, of course. We know Spurs need some more transfers. Postecoglou knows it as well. He doesn't seem concerned. He's not a guy that would hide his disappointment if he really was. He would make that very clear. But he seems okay at the moment with it all. And what we've kind of got out this pre-season, because of the missing players as well, you've just got to see a lot of really young, exciting players. And I felt Postecoglou was a little bit slightly dismissive to a degree of the talent within the academy. When I asked him about it earlier, kind of midway through last season. But even he's now saying that there is this very talented group of players. And there was a good interview. I saw Spurs do a little documentary thing about pre-season where Matt Wells, the senior assistant coach, said that James Maddison, who was only talking to him just moments before that interview, where James Maddison was saying is how ridiculously talented these young players are. And there's also the aspect of transfers block the path for young players. I'm not saying that they shouldn't make the transfers, but it is something you kind of also have to weigh up going forward as well. Just how much, kind of how important it is to have a pathway for them. Look, like Postecoglou says, ultimately the players are there, they're in training, they've got the chance to impress. If they impress, they'll get a chance in a match, and that's kind of what they're doing. So ultimately, regardless of who comes in, I suppose, they're going to get their chance. But just sometimes through sheer weight of numbers, they end up going out on loan. Like Alfie Devine. Alfie Devine's had a terrific loan at Port Vale, then a decent loan at Plymouth as he was kind of getting used to that next step up, and he's come back looking like a player who is a professional rather than an academy player. And maybe some of these young players need that first, but it's also about they've got to have a feeling that they're going to get through. You know, some of these players, they head off on loan, they come back and they're like, it's still just as clogged up at the squad as it was before. But yeah, it's been a pretty positive tour so far. I haven't really got out to see too much because obviously there's been a lot of work. I'm hoping to do that in Korea over the next couple of days. Got a press conference tomorrow, which is Sonny and Ange. Open training again, and then the game against Team K-League on Wednesday night. Radu Dragoshin's out here now. He's joined up. How much he'll be able to play, we'll have to see. I mean, technically, he's only really had a couple of 2 or 3 weeks off. When was it? Yeah, actually, maybe slightly longer than that since he left the Euros. So we'll see what kind of shape he's in. He might be one that maybe just like Davies and Vicario gets 45 minutes. But it'd be good to see kind of a natural centre back there. It'd be interesting to see now whether Archie Gray remains there because he's been very good in the role, or whether they use him in the midfield. We got to see for about 15 minutes or so the Gray, Sarr, Bergvall axis, the trio in the middle, and seeing how that worked, and it seemed to work. So yeah, it's fascinating to kind of see how it works. I think he's going to have to blend these two. You've got this game, and then Saturday is the part one against Bayern Munich. So he may end up having to blend the two teams across those because they're only 3 days apart. Whereas that was the reason they had that under 21s match of sorts. Although a couple of slightly older players sprinkled in there as well, was because it was a week between matches, and some of those younger players were clearly not going to play as much game time as they had in the other ones, because they. Although did Jamie Donley? I think actually Jamie Donley did come on. Jamie Donley came on for the 45. It's been a long time. It's been. Oh no, I might be able to see here. I just want to get it right in case I'm spouting absolute nonsense. Which, so look, 45 minutes. They were. It was, yeah. He came off for Ben Davies. Of course he did. Yeah. Yeah, interestingly, Spurs didn't have Brandon Austin coming on. But he certainly did. I'm sure he did at half time. It was 4 subs. It was Skip for Basuma as well. Of course it was. Yeah, I was really impressed by Jamie Donley. I feel like he's been a little bit of an unsung kind of young player this pre-season. I think a lot of attention, quite understandably, has gone towards Mikey Moore. I don't think Jamie Donley has got quite the recognition I think he deserves of playing as a left back. The guy is an attacking midfielder. I think he's done so well. Certainly attacking midfielder / forward. But he's been playing at left back and he's been making it look like his role, and that's a huge deal really. And obviously Jed Spence as well. Jed Spence coming back and continuing to be really bright. Obviously he's out here in both Tokyo and Seoul, and will no doubt get more chances over the next couple of games. And yeah, we'll see what the future holds for him. Still a long way to go in this transfer window, but he's at least putting himself into the equation, which is a big thing. So yeah, right, that's it. I'm going to head off because it was just an update really. I'll be back with Guesty on the pod later in the week. We'll talk about the Team K-League game. Yeah, plenty to discuss, no doubt. Yeah, that's it. I think really. I was just trying to think if there's any other little bits and pieces. Been some talk, of course, about selling a stake in the club. It's kind of what we've been hearing since April, when Daniel Levy first said that they were having talks with prospective people about a 10%, not 10%, but a minority stake. There's been suggestions it might end up being 10%. And yeah, I think it's something that probably needs to happen. Definitely needs to happen. Really, they need more investment into the club. They need to be able to spend big money and back Postecoglou. So yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that and seeing whether that advances or not. Spurs not commenting on that as they've done every time since April when any of this has come up, because it has quite a lot about prospective people having talks. And yeah, we'll see. Right, time to head off and head out into the heat of South Korea. It's not quite as warm as Tokyo, and there's a bit more of a breeze, but it's still pretty warm. Which, hey, I'm not complaining. There's certainly worse places in the world that I could be covering a pre-season tour in, so there you go. But plenty more interviews to come. Like I say, look on the website. Today for Kulusevski, tomorrow will be Ange and Sonny at the presser, as well as training news. And then I've got various interviews coming up, obviously subject to change, but I think we've got Jamie Donley, funnily enough, Brandon Austin, Vicario, Destiny Doggy, and various other bits and pieces. Loads of other players I can't even remember coming up, and anyone that we grab after a game too. So yeah. So keep an eye on football.london for all of your news from this tour. And yeah, time to head off. Catch you later. Goodbye.